Yeah! Welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast, brought to you by Yoshimura, 65 years of four-stroke research and development, and an all-new website, so go to yoshimura-rd.com. Of course, everything built right in the USA, the exhaust system built in the USA. And by the way, I got to experience a thunderous, perhaps the biggest, loudest, gnarliest Yoshimura exhaust system in existence when I took a Honda Grom 125 single-cylinder street bike out for Daytona Bike Week. I really dove whole hog into the Bike Week experience. I've gone to a lot of races there. I've spent a lot of time there. I'd never actually ridden on the street during Daytona Bike Week, but on Saturday night after the Supercross, I brought my family to the race with me. They left early because there's no way my kids can stay up to even to opening ceremonies of Supercross, and there's certainly no way they're up till 1 or 2 in the morning when I'm done working. And I realized I didn't have a vehicle, and unlike most races where everyone's driving back to hotels and I can hitch a ride, a lot of people were just camped out in the infield. So I was stranded until I grabbed one of the Racer X staff vehicles, which is a Honda Grom, and a helmet, thanks Davey, and I fired that thing up, and then I heard the sweet, sweet, thunderous sound. Loud pipes save lives. It was a Yoshimura exhaust system on that Grom. And, dude, I was lighting it up. I mean, wheelies, burnouts, the amount of ground-pounding, thunderous horsepower that 125 air-cooled single-cylinder four-stroke was putting out was amazing. And I think a lot of it was because of that Yoshimura exhaust. So if you got one of those bikes, it's practically required. Just put the Yoshimura exhaust system on it. It actually wasn't that loud. It was still, fun. Not so loud that it was uncomfortable for people to be around you, but it sounded cool. So I highly recommend that. Now, for the last couple weeks in the podcast, I have been plugging something new, something radical with Racer X, and we now have it. It is the all-new digital edition. So go to digital.racerxonline.com. The all-new digital edition is actually free. We're giving it away free right now. So normally you have to subscribe just like you would to get the print magazine to get the digital edition. But we've unshackled it. There is zero payment necessary. Just punch in your email and you're in. And with the scrolling format, a clickable table of contents, and I mean scrolling up and down, it looks just like Instagram. You can click on the table of contents, you can go right to the stories you want. We've got interactive ads and expandable videos. This is not like any other digital edition of a magazine you've ever seen before. To me, again, it feels more like scrolling through Instagram, but it's actually all the articles and stories and ads and pictures and stuff that we worked so hard to put into the monthly edition of Racer X Illustrated. Pinch and zoom, now a thing of the past. Here's why. A magazine is horizontal. Your phone is set up to be vertical. This new digital edition will fit the framing of your phone better than anything you've ever seen. So go to digital.racerxonline.com right now and take a free test ride of our new issue. I'm really proud of the Cooper Webb story that I put together in that. There's a lot of other great stuff, but the Cooper Webb story one is the best. So read it, and then listen to this. Podcast. Yeah. Now, one other thing I need to mention here, Supercross Futures. Go to supercrossfutures.com and learn all about how you can actually experience what it's like to participate in Monster Energy Supercross as a racer. The top elite amateur riders, they go to Supercross Futures to earn their Road to Supercross eligibility points so they can race Supercross as a pro in the future. But there are also classes for kids, for old guys, the ladies. Forget if you want to be a pro Supercross rider. If you just want to say that you got to compete in one of these big, awesome stadiums one time in your life, this is your only chance. They just ran one at Indy over the weekend. That would have been yesterday. Another one coming up March 31st in Houston, April 7th in Nashville, Denver, April 14th, and the finale May 5th at Sam Boyd Stadium. And then in addition, there's going to be one tied in with the Monster Energy Cup October 20th and 21st, where they will crown AMA champions. So go to supercrossfutures.com for more on that. This week's guest on the Exhaust Podcast is Blake Savage. Now, you might know the name Blake Savage. You should know the name Blake Savage. Back when I started this podcast 1 year ago, yes, it's our 1 year anniversary, made the debut with Davey and I talking about the history of Daytona. Actually, pretty much Davey talking and me saying, interesting. We did that, and then a couple days later, I went to Ken Roczen's house and went on a jog with Roczen and his trainer, Blake Savage. That was 1 year ago. Well, unfortunately for Blake, what a difference a year makes. Because on January 14th, Blake was out riding with Ken Roczen. He crashed, and he was paralyzed. Now, he's trying to come back from this. He is fighting valiantly. Blake is one of the fittest, strongest, most dedicated to working out and exercising people on earth, so that certainly is helping him, and he has made strides. He broke his neck, not his back, his neck. So there was serious danger of almost no movement at all. But he's got the upper body working. If you follow Blake Savage, you can go to @BlakeSavage762 on Instagram and see his progress there. It is awesome. He's got some movement with his legs just recently. And he got out of the hospital and is now working on his own from home starting March 1st. So I decided to get in touch with him. And you never know what you're going to get in this situation. You know, a lot of it could be private. Maybe he didn't want to talk about it, or maybe he was just going to leave a lot of the details out. But he said he would be happy to tell his story and be open and honest. So I think a lot of the questions that we've all had about what happens when someone gets paralyzed, breaks their neck or breaks their back, what is it like? He's going to tell you. Now, the good news is, hopefully this isn't permanent. He is making progress, and you can actually help with Road to Recovery. I know everyone has insurance. A lot of people have insurance. When riders go down and the Road to Recovery thing comes out, someone's always going to say, don't these dudes have insurance? Bro, I have insurance. I got to pay a copay when I go to the doctor when I have the flu. So what do you think the copay and the bills and all these things are when you have a catastrophic, and this is a catastrophic, injury? And all the rehab and all the time in the hospital and everything that goes along with it. So Blake does have insurance. It does help, but certainly more money needs to be raised. And the more money he has in an account that he can use to pay for therapy, the better his chances of recovery are. So help out. I encourage you to go to road2recovery.com and check out the Blake Savage Fund there. They've raised a little over $30,000 at this point. They had a really cool fundraiser not that long ago, a Supercross watch party that they held in Utah, which is where Blake is from. He got to hang out and go, and they raised some money there. Blake is the trainer for Ken Roczen, Chase Sexton, Cole Seeley, and Christian Craig. His sister is Ken Roczen's wife, so he's actually Ken's brother-in-law. And it was really cool that they gave me some time with them a year ago, and it's even better that he gave me time here, and again, was very open and honest about what he's going through. So here's Blake Savage, the coach, the trainer for Ken Roczen. And by the way, Blake had a pro license himself, did some racing. I remember him on the podium at Loretta's. He was up front when he raced Canadian Nationals, a very good off-road racer as well. So Blake is not just a trainer, he is a dirt bike racer through and through. Tried to get this done last week while I was down in Daytona, and we couldn't make our schedules align, but it actually sounds like, looking at his Instagram post today, that was for the better, because last week was a tough week. This week seems to be a better week, and that's kind of the theme of the roller coaster road to recovery that you have with this type of injury. So props to Blake for being so honest, and here is our interview.
I would say last week was not that good of a week for me.
Yeah.
When you leave the hospital, there's a lot to get used to.
Yep.
You no longer have nurses helping you, 24/7, and people right by your side, and a call button, attached to your bed. And then all of a sudden you just find that things are kind of out of place, and you can't reach to grab this because it's too high, and you can't get in here because you're in a wheelchair and you can't get through a doorway. Little things like that, and it becomes frustrating, and it all compiles a little bit, and so that little things like that become tough. And then I got a bladder infection, and that made things really hard.
Yeah.
So there was a lot physically and emotionally that was pretty bad for about a week, but finally getting over all that stuff.
All right, well, let's. I'll start right here with this. First of all, I think the main question everybody has is what exactly happened. I guess you were riding to some degree. What was the crash? What happened in the first place?
Yeah, so it was right after Phoenix Supercross, and Ken and I decided to come up to where I live, actually, and there's a Supercross track 40 minutes south of where St. George is in Mesquite, Nevada. And there's he was riding Supercross, and for whatever reason, I still ride here and there, and and I decided to ride that day. And yeah, I was riding, and
Yep.
everything was fine. Everything was going well, and was doing all the jumps, doing all the rhythms, getting comfortable, um, and it was our last session. And I think I told him I was just going to do whatever he was going to do, and I think that was 3 10s, because the following weekend was maybe a triple crown race. So the third 10 that we were doing, 10-minute moto, yeah, just came up a little bit short on this. With this, it was like a triple double section, and so I cased the first triple, and then kind of sent me forward into the next triple. And I'm not sure if it was just the angle that I kind of faced into the face of the jump, or if the bike landed on me or whatever. But yeah, so yeah, I wasn't ever knocked out or anything. It was not that bad of a crash, actually, considering a lot of the crashes that I've had in the past. And
Yep.
yeah, Ken was actually riding right behind me, and so he was the first one to me, and I was laying on my side, and he's like, "Hey, you all good? Everything, you okay?" And he was a bit worried, and then yeah, I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then I started to kind of like start to move around a little bit more, and I realized that in my core region, in my lower body, I didn't have any feeling, so I couldn't move. And actually thinking back to the moment and how crazy things could get real quick, realizing that you have no feeling,
Right.
or movement, I stayed really calm.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like everyone else around me was actually a little bit freaking out a little bit more than what I was. But I stayed calm through the whole thing, and then yeah, I ended up getting an ambulance to come get me, and went to the nearest hospital. And yeah, things kind of went from there. And when I got to the hospital, took some X-rays and MRI and all that, and realized that I had fractured my C6 and 7 vertebrae in my neck, um, and I'm considered what you call an incomplete spinal cord injury, which means you haven't really severed the spinal cord. So you haven't done too much damage, but you have done some damage, and there's some swelling and bruising and whatnot going on. So yeah, incomplete injury, C6 and 7, and so now I'm I think today I counted 64 days into it of recovering. And yeah, and things are slowly starting to progress. It's been a definite roller coaster ride in the last 2 months, but things are slowly getting better.
Well, you did an excellent job, even on social media, putting a brave face on it, which I'm sure is key, to try to stay as positive as possible, and to keep people around you positive too. But, dude, I mean, most racers, this is what they worry about the most. I mean, there had to be some serious lows there. You've done a good job fighting through that and sounding positive, but I'm sure it wasn't positive all the time. It can't be, right?
No,
Oh,
definitely not.
yeah.
It's been the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. And
Yep.
yeah, it's one of those things that you think back, and for me, I'm like, I've had so many big crashes before, and
Yep.
this is one of the one of the things that racers, they know it's there in the back of their mind, but they never think it's going to happen. And usually everyone gets pretty lucky with a lot of the crashes that they end up having. And for me, I'm just kind of sitting here scratching my head, like, why why that day, and
Yep.
why that crash, because I've had a lot worse crashes than that for sure. So yeah, for me, it's been it's been really tough. As I try to explain my whole situation the best I can, and but then I do try to put a positive little twist on it, and make sure people aren't worrying about me too much. But yeah, there's times where, especially like I said, getting out of the hospital, that's when things became really tough.
Yeah.
um but yeah, it's it's definitely one of those things. I wake up each day, and I kind of go to roll over out of bed, and you're expecting your legs to move, and it's
Hmm.
just not there. And yeah, I mean, I've I've been I've had the lowest lows that I could have ever
Sure.
possibly imagined. And I'm
Sure.
like, man, this is the toughest situation I've ever been in. And but then, the people around me, my mom and dad and my girlfriend Bailey, they're always there to kind of pull me back up. And really, that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
In this situation, is your support team around you and keeping you positive. I don't know what I would do without those guys, to be honest, because yeah, there's been times where nothing too crazy of thoughts in your mind, but you kind of almost tell yourself like, man, this would be a lot easier if you know I guess
Hmm. Hmm.
not necessarily like suicidal thoughts, but just
Hmm.
thinking like this would be a lot easier if you know just you weren't feeling any of this, and
Right.
you weren't here. But so it does get really really tough like that, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and you're thinking, all these really bad thoughts kind of start to creep into your mind. And I remember in the early stages, you're like, why did I decide to ride that day? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? But
Right.
really, I've kind of come to terms of that's just who I am, and that's just the choices that I make, and that's the personality that I am. And riding dirt bikes has been a part of me, for forever. And I kind of think back, like, would I really change anything or go back or whatever? And I would probably make the same mistake again. Or not even a mistake. I would make the same choice again to go ride my motorcycle. And even I sit here now, and I tell myself, when I'm back walking, and I try to talk positive to myself like that, like, when I am back walking, I'm probably going to ride a dirt bike again. So um, yeah, so all these bad thoughts and whatever, I'm just like, you know what, I put myself in this position, and I would probably make the same decision again. So no regrets really.
Well, that probably helps, as a matter of fact. I mean, it'd be easy to just keep following that path of being like, why? But it helps to think to yourself, well, there's no reason that day you wouldn't have gone riding. Like, that's only like revisionist history could you even say that, because that's just what you do. So you can't go down that path too far. Yeah.
No, that,
Yep.
that exactly. That's the person I am, and yeah, riding dirt bikes like that day, it was a perfect day up to that point, and
Yep.
everything was totally fine. It's just one little mistake that you make, and you think you're gonna hit the dirt and get back up, and this is a little bit of a different situation than any other crash that I've had before. So yeah, for whatever reason, it's hard for me to even explain, why this crash. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, we're sitting in this situation now, and just trying to make the most of it. So
Hey, what experience do you have? Like, had you done that Supercross track? Had you done Supercross? Was this actually a big step to get back out there, or is this something you are fairly common to recently riding Supercross tracks?
no, I mean, I haven't really been riding Supercross, to be honest, and
Hmm.
maybe something. Well, I actually decided to ride Supercross that day because it was a little bit of a more of a mellow Supercross track, and
Right.
there was no Supercross whoops.
Hmm.
And it was really a track that I went out there, and within 5 laps I was doing. I wasn't doing like any of the huge triple quad rhythms, lanes or anything like that, but I was just doing the main rhythms through it and doing the triple, the finish line, all the basic stuff. And I had been doing that all day, and so really didn't feel like I was unsafe or out of my element. It was something I got used to pretty quick, and um, yeah, for whatever reason, just a little bit of a little bit of a mistake. I don't know, mistiming
Hmm.
or whatever, and kind of threw me forward and yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, like even that
I
section where you crashed, was that even like a tough section every single lap, or were you cleaning it pretty easy most of the day?
no no I
Yeah.
was for most of the day I was actually cleaning it
Hmm.
really easy, and it was just um yeah, it was just one of those things. I don't even know why it happened
Yep.
that lap or that time and place. So
Okay, so now we'll shift to the recovery. That was awesome today to see on Instagram some of the movement that you have in your leg and whatnot. I know that with these incomplete spinal cord situations, no one can really predict. So, how do you feel it's going? Obviously, you've progressed, and it's cool to see that for sure. So, how can you rate it? Do you know if it's going well?
with the people around me and
Hmm.
all the therapists I work with, they're actually pretty blown away with how well I'm doing.
Cool.
For a sea level injury,
Yep.
I should be I shouldn't even be I shouldn't even have the arm strength and upper body
Yep.
strength that I do right now.
Hmm.
A lot of people that I talked to, even I talked to Jimmy Button
Uh huh.
just a couple of days ago, and he was telling me at 2 months he was barely getting just finger and hand movement back. So,
Wow.
but like you said, an incomplete spinal cord injury, or really any spinal cord injury, they're everyone's a different story. It's not like breaking a collarbone where it's like 4 weeks, 5 weeks later, a collarbone's healed and you're ready to go. Each spinal cord injury, it could be the same exact C6, C7 injury, and um, and it doesn't mean that there could be one person that walks away months later, and one person that never walks again. So it's super unpredictable. But for me, um, I remember sitting in the hospital and then just telling myself, all I want to see is like my toes move, or my foot move, or
Yeah.
something,
Hmm.
and just something lower body, because I was starting to get progress upper body, starting to get some strength back, and starting to get some strength back in my hands. Still, that's a little bit of an issue, but it's getting better too.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I feel like you know there was just a time, I think only a week and a half ago, where yeah, I showed up to therapy and they were doing this assisted walking with me, and they all of a sudden I started just making steps with my right leg, and kind of making a stride movement as if I was walking, and at first I was kind of like, I didn't really believe it. I thought maybe, oh, I have a tight hip flexor, or there's something going on that's making it look like I'm making this step,
Uh
because
huh.
for me it's like it doesn't feel like a natural walking movement. I the best I can do is just kind of run it through my head of like what I remember walking feeling like,
Hmm.
and that's how you try to that's how you try to make the connection to your spinal cord, that sends signal to your lower extremities to make a movement, and that's what I'm constantly doing when I'm at therapy, is trying to be aware of how what am I thinking as I'm going through movement, and and thankfully my girlfriend was there with me that day, and she was filming, and then on the car ride home, I decided, hey, let me watch that film that you did today, and I was watching it, and a lot of it was clear to me that like that was not just because of a tight hip flexor, or just something else going on. That was actually me making that movement, and and that was the first time. I've had a lot of lows where I've been crying, and that was the first time on the car ride home where I was actually started to tear up, because I was really happy,
Hmm.
that I was actually making movement through my legs, and it was pretty unbelievable. And then later that later that evening, I was home and I was sitting in my chair, and I was on the phone with somebody. I forget who it was, but I all of a sudden started just moving my foot, and then I started, my quad started contracting, and I could do knee extension, and I
Wow.
was like,
Wow.
yeah, I couldn't believe it. Just like out of nowhere, my right leg started getting some connection and getting some signals. So that was awesome to me. And there hasn't been anything happen recently to my left leg. No connection there, but that's not common really for things to like all of a sudden you get right leg movement and then left leg comes with it too at the same time. So that could come 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. So at this point, it's really just being patient. It's a waiting game to get more movement. Yeah, I could wake up tomorrow morning and have movement in my left leg. So it's the spinal cord stuff is super unpredictable. Nobody has any answers for why things happen a certain way, and you just kind of have to be patient and just do your best at doing your therapy and staying positive. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I want to ask about how therapy works. So, is this just something like everyone gets prescribed to them and you just do what they say, or is it possible? Like you're a fitness guy, you're a trainer guy. Is it possible to do more, to do extra, to work harder if you put your mind to it? How does that part work?
Yeah. So when I was an inpatient in the hospital, I was doing a lot of therapy. They were having me do 3 to 4 hours, and it was a lot. I mean, it
Hmm.
takes a lot of energy. Even at first, I could barely make it through an hour of therapy for whatever reason. Spinal cord injury, it takes all your energy away, and a 1 hour of just doing like silly little movements is
Yeah.
was harder than any other gym session that I had ever done. It was unbelievable how hard it was, and
Wow.
yeah, it blew my mind. I'm like, how can I remember at one point when I started getting in a wheelchair, it was hard for me to even push myself, let's say, 100 yards or something down the hallway
Hmm.
without just being completely exhausted. So for me, I had to build up some stamina or conditioning or whatever you want to call it to do the therapy. And then I built myself up to where I could do like 4 hours of therapy, which was awesome. And I could do so much. And at the hospital there at the recovery center, I stayed there for 6 weeks, and the therapists were awesome. I came across this one guy. His name was Steve Wallenfeld, and he was one of my main concerns. When I found out that I was going to have to do all this recovery was I hope I don't get stuck with some therapists that are super just cookie cutter basic therapists that aren't gonna you know that aren't going to be the best for me and push me to be the best and
Right.
so, because I know quite a bit about the body, and I'm gonna kind of know if they're good therapists or not.
Hmm.
And this one guy, Steve, he was unbelievable, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to work with him. But after leaving, after insurance is like, hey, you're good enough to go home now. You're kind of a little bit, or you have to figure out a little bit of what you're going to do next. So you become an outpatient. Um, you go to an outpatient therapist, and it's a little bit harder because they only spend an hour with you, maybe only when you're getting 4 hours a day at inpatient, you only get 1 hour outpatient, and only a couple times, maybe only 3 times a week. So from there, you have to really learn and absorb a lot of like what they want you to do, and start doing a lot of that on your own at home. So at this point, I'm doing a lot of my own therapy um, at home, which is fine. You know I'm disciplined enough to get on the mat and do some stuff. All my exercises every day, um, and then thankfully the guy that I was working with, Steve, he he and I, we just kind of gelled so well together that um, at the end of my time at the recovery center, he told me, he's like, hey, we've come so far together, and I know you're kind of like a little bit of a, he knows that I'm super motivated
Hmm.
to get better, and he offered to keep working with me. So now, on his own time, he gets to work with me, and so that's also really cool that he offered that, and I'm thankful for that. So yeah, at this point, I kind of split my time between working with Steve, outpatient therapy, and then doing a lot of my own stuff.
Right. So there is a huge difference between, like, you can try. There's only so much you can do, obviously, because the spinal cord injury is unpredictable. But at the same time, you can kind of create your own destiny just from, you can do more than other people. It's not just this is all you're allowed to do. As much as you're willing to do, it can help. And you're probably willing to do more than most because you actually are an athlete. So you can almost control your own destiny to some degree, it sounds like.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much you can do actually
Mhm.
beyond even just doing therapy. I mean, a lot of like what the spinal cord injury is just rewiring the connection to your brain, to through your spinal cord
Sure.
into your into your body, into your lower extremities, and sending that signal. So a lot of what it is, I do also a lot of um, not just physical work but mental work with meditation, and just really being aware of your body and how
Hmm.
it's feeling, and for me, I how I could explain it to someone is I have really good feeling in my legs when I have really good touch. Like if someone touches me, on my legs or whatever, I can feel it pretty much everywhere. I've
Huh.
lost a little bit of feeling of, or pretty much most feeling of temperature though. Like
Hmm.
when I take a warm shower, pretty much from my I guess the middle of my core down. I can't feel warm water or anything like that. Um, so just like a lot of things like that, body awareness and knowing, how you're progressing, and when you're going through movements, just being really aware of, what you're feeling and sending that connection. And so yeah, with the physical therapy, it's, I can do 5 hours a day, or 3 hours, just as much as I can handle really. And the more the better right now. The more you can move, and that's going to be your best option right now, or for me, is just being my own therapist. And yeah, the more I can do that, the more of a chance I have at getting movement back and getting back walking. Because um, yeah, I mean, it's really important in these first few months, in these early stages, to do a lot of work, because that's kind of like your biggest opportunity to in a spinal cord injury, to get a lot of this movement back. So
So the positive thing, staying positive. Okay, you like fitness, you like training, you're always doing it because you wanted to. That's something you're into. But at the same time, I'd imagine there are setbacks, like you said. And is that literally the difference? Like, you could get to the point where you're like, screw this. I don't feel like doing it today. And you can't allow yourself to think that way. Is that where the positive part comes in?
yeah, man,
Yeah.
there's definitely been days where I'm like, I'm not, no way I'm getting, there's been days where I'm just like, I'm not getting out of bed today. I'm over it. I I don't want to do anything. And then
Hmm.
there's some days like today where I'm like, I could be doing therapy all day, and I'm just super positive
Right.
and motivated. And, yeah, it's just controlling those emotions and telling yourself, or I guess just not getting too high and getting too low, just like with anything in life. And yeah, it's for sure where I've had days where I'm just like, I'm I don't want to do anything today, and you can't do that. For me, it's like I'll be kind of a little bit depressed one of those days, um, and then I get even worse if I'm not like doing therapy. I notice if I miss a couple of days of therapy, I'm I'm definitely a little bit more down in the dumps. So
Right. So even you, someone who's I mean, you train for a living, you train people for a living, you know all about trying to push past those limits. It even does get to you at times, and you got to fight through that. Yeah.
For sure. There's days where, there's I mean, when you're dealing with this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. I mean, you try to open up a door and you can't get over a threshold, or you can't grab something out of the closet, and or you can't, you're transferring into your chair, and um, you just struggle a little bit more. There's a lot of little things that you have to deal with, like whatever, just like bowel and bladder care and things like that. And
Right.
there's a
Stuff that
lot of
take for granted, right?
a
Yeah.
lot of things that used to just be able to, you know, get out of bed, use the bathroom real quick, and then go into the kitchen, grab a glass of water. Like it's not that easy for for a spinal cord injury, anymore. It's a lot of those little things, and you kind of like look back and remember, how easy it used to be, and
Yep.
and then it compiles, and then I don't know, you start to get depressed, and then all of a sudden there's just one day where you have a really bad day or two, where you just don't want to do anything. You just want to kind of give up, and you get and anger is a real thing with this, with this injury. You get really angry at the world, and not necessarily anyone in particular, but just the whole situation. You get pissed off, and yeah. So man, it's just trying to keep your emotions in check, and not get too low and too down in the dumps.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this very revealing interview with Blake Savage. Just want to thank our sponsor again, Yoshimura. They've been backing the Exhaust podcast. In fact, they were the ones kicking me in the butt to get this thing started a year ago. And again, one of our first episodes was with Blake Savage and Ken Roczen. So thanks for Blake for coming back on. Thanks to Blake for coming back on. And thanks to you for listening. Go to yoshimura-rd.com for all your four-stroke exhaust needs. Let's talk more with Blake Savage. So what has helped here is their Road to Recovery's come in, and they're raising some money. I have no idea how this works in this situation. Like, we do know that anytime you're in a hospital or getting rehab or anything like that, it's like the bill doesn't even make sense. It's always like, is this another currency of money? Is this a different denomination? Because the bills are so high. So I don't know what kind of insurance you have and all that works. Then people get confused, and they're like, don't these dudes have insurance? Well, dude, yeah, I'm sure you did, but this is an extremely high bill. So the fundraising, I'm sure, has helped. And how does that work? Like, you have to pay some of it. The funds are going to go to X, Y, Z. How does that all work?
Yeah, I mean, so it just happened to be when so my injury was January 14th, and my 26th birthday was December 9th. So that's right around the time, where you have to make the transition to being off of your parents' insurance, and now you have to have your own insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, I did get my own insurance, and
Okay.
it was a decent insurance,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't the best by any means. It was enough to probably cover my surgery and a few other things, but then after that, there's some things that you find out, like they don't want to pay for your outpatient therapy, or they only want to help you with this amount per day in the hospital. So
Right.
there's a lot of things that start to pop up, and you learn that there's going to be a lot of expenses that you're going to have to deal with, and for me, I'm going to be doing therapy for a long time, and each therapy visit is a couple $100. So for me, it's all the help possible is so it goes a long ways, because for me to get any better, that's therapy is a must. And so thankfully, there's some Road to Recovery has helped me out so much with a lot of this stuff, and I'm able to get to therapy, and then get little things like I just ordered this it's called a recumbent bike or something like that, where it syncs your arms and your legs up together, and so it's a therapy tool I can start to use. And so there's yeah, there's just a lot of expenses that you end up coming across with this stuff. It's really never ending, and so thankfully there's Road to Recovery and a lot of people out there that are helping me out and putting on fundraisers for me to just maximize my recovery and give me everything I need to give me a fighting chance to get back on my feet.
Yeah, how'd that event go? I know they had a Supercross watch party there in Utah with Rocky Mountain ATV MC set that up a little bit. So how did that go?
Yeah, it was awesome. It's a local dealership here in St. George,
Hmm.
Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and they were kind enough to let us put it on there, and it was awesome. There was actually a really good turnout. I think they said it was like 175 or 180 people that showed up, and we all watched Supercross and raffle off some prizes. Thankfully, the all the guys that I work for, Cole, Ken, Chase, Christian, they
Hmm.
they gave me some jerseys to raffle off, and then a lot of other people also donated some things. So the turnout was really good. We were able to raise really good money, and it was cool to see how many people I actually not only that I knew show up to the fundraiser, but how many people that I had no idea who they were. So it's cool to see how many people out there are following me and actually, care and are willing to come support me. That was really cool for me to see.
So yeah, talk about the interaction. I guess some of your guys, some of your riders that you train, have been able to come out and visit or even go to that a little bit.
Yeah, Christian's been out to come see me
Hmm.
one time at the hospital, and also Cole came and saw me too. They both came from California, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then Christian also showed up at the fundraiser too to come help and support me there. Um, so it's been awesome, and then I haven't ever since my crash. I saw Ken, for a little while, and then Chase and Chase and Ken have been racing and been on the road a bunch, so
Right.
I haven't got to see them for a little while. But yeah, Cole and Christian have been there to help and support me. So
Yeah. So what's your interaction as far as I mean, you were helping train these guys. Obviously, you got to focus on yourself right now. Are you still following it? Are you still texting them, calling them? Are you trying to contribute whatever way you can, or is it like, dude, I got to just do me right now?
no, for a little while, it was a little bit tough. Just I could barely even type on a computer or text
Right.
on my phone or anything because my hands were so bad. Because of the injury, my upper
Hmm.
body was super weak.
Yep.
Um, so I could just barely talk to them on the phone. But then I came out of that pretty quickly, and now kind of my job with them is pretty much the same. Aside from I'm not really there at the track with them every day like I was, or in the gym with them. But I'm still keeping them on a training program
Oh wow.
and talking to them every single day, and they've been awesome enough to stick by my side and support me through this, and I know it's tough at times, but I couldn't ask for a better group of guys to stick by my side and help me through this. And you know they could easily kind of jump ship and be like, hey, I need someone that's going to be with me every single day. But they're kind of fighting through this thing with me also.
How much does that help you, by the way, to have something else to think about? Because, like you said, it's easy to get down in the dumps over this, but when you're talking about their race or their training program, then it's like nothing happened at all. You're doing the same stuff you did, as far as talking to them about it. So that's got to help a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I love what I do, and so it's easy for me to stick to what I'm doing
Yeah.
and support these guys. And yeah, it's been really cool to. It's something that I can get my mind off of this whole thing
Yep.
and look forward to watching them race on the weekends and talking to them every single day and following their progress and communicating with them, seeing what they need and what they want to be changed. And so that's been really good for me to kind of get my mind off of it. And they're always, they're always asking me how I'm doing, and I don't know. It overall, it's an awesome. They're an awesome group of guys, and I love working for them.
How much does it help? By the way, I know that Peter Park is kind of Kenny's trainer also, and you work side by side with him. You've got some very knowledgeable people in general in the fitness and probably even rehab fields. So that's got to help too. Not like anyone's an expert on this subject because it's very unpredictable, but I'm sure there's been some pointers here and there, or even just some positivity from people who know what the heck they're talking about.
Oh, for sure. There's been a lot of people. Even even a lot of my friends, like Jesse Nelson is
Yep.
a close friend of mine who's been through this before, and he's right from when I got injured, he was one of the first people to call me and ask me how I'm doing. And I think it's one of those things where if you've been there before and you know the struggle, you have some sympathy towards that person and what they're dealing with. And then also another friend of mine, Garrett Bergen, he's a close friend. He also was injured in a motorcycle crash. A lot of these people start to reach out and start to help you with everything and kind of give you some knowledge about the whole thing. And then with me, just learning things through my career and guys like Peter, just learning about the human body and how everything works as a system. It really does help because when I was in therapy, I was always, it was easy for me to communicate with all the therapists about, what they're wanting out of me and what they want me to feel or move a certain way or feel a certain muscle. And I was, so I was able to communicate with them on their level. And so that really helped out a lot. It definitely helps. I couldn't imagine just being a regular patient, not having a whole lot of awareness about the body and trying to get through this. It would be really tough.
Yeah, because that thing you said before, where I hope I get a rehab specialist who I can trust, because you know the difference. If you don't have the experience that you have, and most people don't, you're probably the whole time like second guessing everything they're asking you to do because you have no idea if this is right, and you only get one shot at it. So that's got to be really hard. At least you actually have a clue of what they're telling you to do and why you're doing it.
Yeah, that's why when I came across Steve, there's always been something about him that I've never second guessed anything that he's told me to do, because just everything that he talks about, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But I have had some therapists, you could say, where you don't really stick with the one therapist all the time. You kind of go through like 2 or 3 different guys, and sometimes you like second guess the other ones. You're like, I don't know, but I'll kind of, movement, actually being here and moving is better than not doing anything at all, kind of thing. But then you get with a certain therapist where you're like, your trust is 100% there. And it's just so nice. They just kind of get the most out of you, and something about maybe your mentality clicks a little bit differently, and you just for that session you just put in your full effort because you trust everything that this person has to say. And so it's been nice. Like, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad that I know I can kind of sense
Right.
a good therapist or not.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely played in my favor for sure.
I know you had mentioned to me that even your goal wasn't to just be a motocross trainer, that you wanted to do other stuff somewhere down the line. Even I think you'd even said like actors or Hollywood and even stuff like that, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like I love working with athletes for sure, but I would also like to work with like, let's say a big CEO of a company, or just just your regular regular client who's just looking to get strong and healthy and fit again, maybe lose some weight and put on some, body mass and just get feeling better again. And I feel like those guys is almost more rewarding because you have so much to offer to them. And with an athlete, it's a job to them. But if you're working with someone, a regular, a guy that's got a 9 to 5 job and their hour in the gym with you is just their getaway and something that they look forward to. That's almost more rewarding because their I don't know, their full attention's going to be there, and their I guess they just have so much more to ask, and
Yep.
and you have so much more to offer to them. The athletes that I work with, they're already pretty educated about everything because it's their job. But someone that's maybe dealing with some health issues or something, and being able to offer a lot of knowledge to them and maybe change their life and change their mood or their outlook on things is super rewarding. So that's something that I would really want to work with in the future.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So, I mean, with the experience you're having now, and we don't know exactly what condition you'll get in, but let's say you're back up and walking and all that. I mean, dude, who would turn down your services considering all you've experienced and all you've gone through and all the knowledge you'd have, and just an inspiration, and you'd be an inspiration. So, in any way, it could end up being like a boost for what you're trying to do. Because at that point, I'd be like, this guy might be the smartest guy in the world when it comes to this stuff. Because look what he was able to accomplish.
I know that I was actually thinking about that too,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking like, wow, if I could, turn this thing full circle and
Yep.
and be walking again someday, and
Mm-hmm.
then I picture myself being back on my bicycle and back in the gym, lifting weights and doing everything normal again.
Yep.
This could be huge for me and a good story for me to be able to tell people and show people like, this is what I was able to overcome, and I was able to learn all these things along the way. I went through all these hardships and was at the lowest of lows, and I just already just in 2 months it's been such a wild ride, and I've had so many stories that I've in one way it sucks to go through everything that I have, but in another sense it's been a big learning lesson for me, and something that it's been I don't know, it's been really cool to kind of see the change, and for in one thought I feel like it's been kind of positive also for me, and something
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like a lot of the little things that I used to take for granted, now I look at them as like not being such a big such a big deal. A lot of the little things I used to stress about, I'm like, man, that was not even a big deal. All the little things that I used
That's
to
right.
worry about, and I'm each day I wake up, I'm just thinking about all my focus is just put into walking again someday, and so it's something that I don't know. It's been a big learning lesson, and something that has taught me a lot for sure in the last 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just better equipped for it. Unfortunately, I mean, you'd rather not be going through it, but you're better equipped for it than probably most, for better or for worse. I'm sure you wish it didn't happen, but you maybe have a better chance of getting through it than others. So that's the good side. So that's it. We'll tell everybody to go to Road to Recovery. That's number 2 recovery, and I'm sure that helps because I think people get confused. I don't know why. I mean, I know when I go to the doctor, I have insurance. I've always had insurance. You still end up paying for stuff, and that's cheap stuff, not full on heavy duty surgery and physical therapy and all that. So yeah, I definitely get why you need the help, and it's actually cool, by the way, to hear you're still plugged in, like hardcore, to the racing side. So you're still part of the community for sure. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been I'm super thankful that I'm able to continue doing my job,
Yeah.
and everyone stuck by my side, and I'm thankful I don't have like a construction job where I'm just all of a sudden my all of a sudden I just can't do anything and get out there and do, the physical work. And I'm really thankful for the guys that I work with who support me through this, and have faith that I'll be back on my feet again someday. And they get excited to see when I'm, starting to move my legs, and they know I have a goal of being back, being back on the bike rides and back in the gym with them again someday and at the track. So no, it's been awesome.
Last thing, how's your sister? Your sister is Ken Roczen's wife now. I know they got married not too long ago. So have you been able to see her much? I mean, she's not always based in Utah like you are anymore. So how's she doing through all this?
She's been doing really well. She's been one of my main supporters through all this. She was actually the one who kind of put together a lot of the fundraiser that went on at the Rocky Mountain ATVMC place at the dealership there.
Yep.
And she's always FaceTiming me and checking in with me. And she's also going to be coming here in about a week, I think, to come see me. So she's been awesome, big supporter through all this. So I'm thankful to have the family I do, and because I know a lot of stories I've heard in the past of families not being so supportive or kind of freaking out in this whole situation when all of a sudden you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do your job anymore. And my family's been just nothing but supportive through this whole thing, so I'm super blessed.
Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully we get the word out, maybe help you out a little bit. Maybe it's just a positive thing to have your story out in the public. So, man, I just appreciate the honesty. I mean, dude, you could have just said everything's been great the whole time, but you admitted that it's not always the case. So I just appreciate the honesty and just being open about it. I think these are things that people are always curious about, but they never really get the answers because it's obviously a tough subject for anyone to want to bring up. So thanks for doing that so people understand what the heck this is like. Because unfortunately, we see it too much, and then we never know what's really going on. So
yeah. No, I appreciate you letting me share my story, and I try to do my best to be as honest as I can and let everyone know exactly, how hard it is, to be in this situation. But then again, I also do my best to stay positive through this whole thing, because for me, being positive is really what's going to help pull me out of this. So, I've been really working on that, and I want to thank everyone who's been supporting me through Road to Recovery. Like it's I can't even explain to you how helpful that is to receive everyone's support, and the stuff gets pretty tough and gets pretty pricey, and for me, the more therapy I can receive, the more of a chance I have at actually being able to walk again someday, and making the most progress I can. So thank you for letting me share my story, and thanks for everyone's support.
Okay, that is Blake Savage. Absolutely huge wishes, prayers, thoughts, everything for him to get back on his feet. That is just tragic. It's really everyone's biggest concern, I feel, in this sport. Obviously, there is one thing that could be worse. We know that it is potential that you could have a fatal injury, but it's not something that, for whatever reason, and we're fortunate, knock on wood, that you deal with that often in motocross. Fatalities, I don't know if it's a speed thing or what, are fairly uncommon. Certainly at the highest level. Nowadays, everyone has access to Google searches and alerts, and random things do happen here and there. But being paralyzed, I think, is every racer's number one fear in this sport, and hopefully he's able to beat this. He's made great progress already, and hopefully it just keeps getting better. I encourage you again to go to Road to Recovery, and you'll see more about the Blake Savage Fund there. And follow Blake on Instagram at BlakeSavage762, and you can learn more about his recovery. He posts a lot of cool videos on there, and you can see his progress. Thanks to Yoshimura, our sponsor of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast, 65 years of four-stroke research and development, and just a few months, maybe weeks, I think, into an all-new website. So go to yoshimura-rd.com for all of your four-stroke exhaust needs, including something cool for that Grom that you want to have now that I told you how cool that bike is. Funny, somebody on Twitter said, riding a Grom is like being seen driving a minivan. It's not something you want to brag to your friends about. And the irony is, the vehicle I had at Daytona that my family was driving was our family minivan. So I basically went from a minivan to a Grom. I got nothing to hide. I don't care. I got kids. Of course I got a minivan. I love it. It's awesome. Anyway, that's our show for this week. Go to supercrossfutures.com if you want more information on that, and be sure to check out that brand new digital.racerxonline.com, our latest issue of the magazine. You can see it for free. Even if you're not a subscriber, we're going to allow you to read it anyway and see how amazingly revamped and restyled and awesome and easy to use. Thank goodness, man, the amount of work we put into the magazine to know that there's some people that are just like, dude, I just want to read it on my phone. And your digital edition sucks, so I'm never going to read it. We fixed it. It's awesome. Digital.racerxonline.com. And read the Cooper Webb story in there. It's called Tech Support. It's people around him, the team, pushing him back to the top. Awesome story, awesome author. Same guy that does this podcast right here. Just saying, full disclosure. That's it for the show. We'll be back. I'm going to try to get 2 of these podcasts in this week. We'll see how it goes. And then I'm off to Seattle. Thanks for listening. And thanks to Blake Savage for the time.